So, like, regarding Junker lore as the lore of the actual NPC faction, there's, like, the thing about Disco is that, like, most NPC factions, the lore behind them is summarized on a pamphlet, and you kind of piece them together yourself, but there's huge chunks of lore that is just missing or not elaborated on, and it's filled in by other players as headcanon. What about you in terms of Junkers? Like, what do you consider as lore, even though no one, like, there's nothing written about it?
I actually think they kind of operate like zoners, or like I think zoners should operate, and that's just that basically they're like regional enclaves of Junkers. Like, they're not a unified thing. Like, they're unified in that they work together, and in-game that's displayed by an IFF, but each Junker group does its own thing, and that's why they can deal with certain people and not get into shit.
So essentially it's also like, it's like feudal little towns with their own, like, families and shit.
Pretty much. And at the same time, that's why the houses allow them to exist, because you can't just go, oh, these Junkers smuggled, kill all of them. It's like, okay, this group of Junkers are a bunch of fucks. Be rude to them. And I think that's how they should act. Like, that's how it work in lore.
So that's the
in-game that doesn't really
structure,
work because...
Right.
Pretty much.
What about something else?
In terms of, like, the smuggling aspect, the transporting aspect.
Like, tell me about, like, the average day of a Junker that is not space-bound. That doesn't operate in space in terms... as in a pilot.
Doc.
Are we talking, like, station side, then, or planet
yeah,
side?
like, where... Like, in your terms, the Junkers, as we understand them, where's the bulk of their population?
It's never specifically mentioned with them being on planets. Okay, here's the thing. If Junker is a self-identified term, if people call themselves Junkers, then their population would almost entirely be in space, I would assume. If they're called Junkers because they're just regular people that have been given that label, I'd say there'd be, like, millions, billions of Junkers on planets just scrapping shit.
Fair enough. How does the description of the Salvager fit here?
The Salvager itself that you see in-game is just a visual representation. A Salvager is just a ship dedicated to salvaging, and every single Salvager would actually look different if it were properly represented.
Yeah, because it implies that the Junkers are a highly closely knit group on a relative family level. Because, like, every single generation just adds something to every single ship like that.
Yep.
That seemed like a very cool concept, in general.
It is. I do actually really like the current model of the Salvager, but if this were like a real universe, every single Salvager would look different.
It's implied, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it directly says that.
Yeah. But what about the diplomacy with... like, every single group ever? Like, how does it benefit the Junkers in general?
Well, the Junkers mostly just want to make money. And, of course, like, being hostile to groups doesn't really make you money.
But at the same time, the Junkers don't seem like someone... Okay, how to phrase this. The Junkers don't seem like a group that displays their wealth bombastically. Where does it go? What do you think? Considering the amount of... Like, considering the amount... the implied cooperation between Junkers and Unlawfuls in terms of smuggling and everything, you would think that they
The Junkers should have a lot more money, but you don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, where does it go?
Hookers and blow.
Dude, every single hooker would be, like, very, very wealthy at this point.
I'm not entirely certain, because it's not mentioned anywhere. Like, and the thing is, Junkers are, like, more useful in lore, because... Okay, in lore, it's not as easy to go from, like, Alpha to New York as it is in-game.
Yeah.
That's a trip that takes ages, And there's a reason that, like, goods change hands, like, 3 different times on that route.
True.
Like, distance in lore is not distance in game.
You know what?
So it's... I mean, that's a video by itself.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, we never really think about the logistics involved in keeping the bases running. Like, the amount of effort you'd have to put in order to keep the bases running. So, maybe it is... Oh, a group member just left.
I just logged out then, or blacked out, rather.
I think you just did log out, yeah. But you actually physically left, by the way.
Okay, well, as soon as it tells me I've logged out, I'll join then.
Yeah, okay. But, yeah... One of the interesting
That's
things...
actually another thing I don't get about people, to be honest. Because they look at where... this is especially true for corporations.
Yeah.
I think they misjudge their influence based on the bases they have. Like, people go, oh, why is Cryer a Liberty Corp? They don't have any bases in Liberty. Well, the population of this base is 500. The population of this base is 600. The population of this planet is 37 billion.
Yeah, like... Let's be honest. The space station is basically an average New York office building in terms of population size. Or even smaller, actually. It's just a small office... You're back. A small office... No shit. A small office building that just happens to be much more expensive to run because it just happens to be in fucking space.
Yep. Oh, I super jumped.
Oh. Where are you, friendo?
Let me accept this, and there you go.
I'm afraid to ask. Wait, let me see. Oh, I see. I think we'll meet. We'll meet at the thing.
I think I'm actually closer to the New Berlin jump hole than the jump gate.
Yup.
Well, the bottom left D7.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm 92k away.
Oh, let's meet at the jump hole then. Like, I should get there as fast as you. I just need to take a straight lane. Okay, I have a... This is a very out-of-worldly what-if headcanon for the Junkers from my side, but the reason I think they don't display their wealth is because they are waiting for some sort of... Well, let's not say it's a cataclysm or something, but something where they're basically just acquiring resources and stockpiling them. That's the whole point.
That is definitely possible.
Like, they know something, or maybe are predicting something that would happen that would make resources a key element to retaining strength.
You know, there is an alternate suggestion. This would be down to, like, the person. Like, everyone would probably have their own goals for, like, being a junker, but,
obviously.
They could just enjoy the life.
Yeah, true. Like, you're out of reach of any regulations apart from, you know, junker creed, if you really want to call it that way. Yeah, why not? It's kind of funny because the way that you describe it, it's like, okay, I'll admit, like, the way that I imagine rogues is completely different from what they're actually portrayed. And this is not even going as far as, like, headcanon, because, you know, I'm filling in the blanks, but I'm actually choosing to ignore, like, certain parts of you know, text you would find in the game. Oh yeah, that's another thing. You know how we build our perception of the factions based on, you know, the information from Bar?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They're called rumors. And they're told you by a most probably inebriated guy you met at a bar.
Warning, sensor efficiency.
How believable
reduced.
are those rumors, I wonder?
Well, they've yet to sell me a bad jump hole location, so...
Well, I mean, I too could probably just
I mean,
pull up
this
some information
sketchy
from
guy in the bar also managed to hack my rep pretty well, so...
Truth. Oh. Are there any other factions that you have your, you know, little headcanon?
Not particularly, to be honest. Actually, sort of. Like, okay, there have been a lot of tears over the years about, like, oh, why are there outcast caps docking on this base? Nigga, in lore, that cap is bigger than this base.
So it's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the station has docked with the battleship. I think that's actually goes back to, like, friction of distance again. Because, like, in lore, these places are dangerous. You don't go out there. It takes, like, 6 hours of traveling to go there.
Yeah, the
Why would
distances
you?
are huge.
Yeah.
So it's not really a cap that goes to New York. It's an actual capital ship that, quotes, operates in New York.
Pretty much. Well, I mean, you can sort of see that, because, in the original campaign, it took, like, what, 2 weeks to get from Sigma 17 to New York?
Yeah.
Like, distances are supposed to be huge. And obviously, scanners were a lot less effective.
Oh, shall I bore you with my thoughts on the rogues?
Go for it.
Okay, so, are you ready? I jumped, by the way.
You know, I'm AKY.
Alright, let's just start with step 1. The term Liberty Rogues as a faction doesn't exist. There are no such things as...
it's the label that people give to the rogues.
Exactly. Essentially, every single criminal who doesn't have any specific agenda in terms of, oh, a lane hacker or a Xeno or a whatever, right? It's basically a rogue. The Liberty Rogues is just a blanket term used by libertarians to call their criminal elements. Just random criminal, unaffiliated criminal elements. So, step 1, the Liberty Rogues are basically a generic pirate ID that just originates from Liberty. So that's the first one. And the second one, I pretty much approve the same idea, like the same notion that every single base the rogues have their own, like, ideals or their own, you know, culture, if you really want to call it that way. Because essentially, again, if we're looking at it from a distance perspective, every single base has its own set of circumstances, immediate threats, immediate needs, what its role is within the whole environment. And so obviously, every single base would be kind of responsible for the operations, or at least providing the necessary
and of course there is actually a guy at the top, because someone has to make sure the lights turn on.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that every single place is a quote underboss, but at least there is some sort of hierarchy in terms of who gets the best things. Like, I realize from a purely mechanical standpoint, the reason why the rogue NPCs are really shitty at the very core worlds and get more powerful as you get away from Liberty is a, you know, just a game mechanic one, because, you know, progression system. But
yeah,
it actually can be kind of explained in terms of Liberty Rogue rookies that are, let's say, lucky enough or have the opportunity to obtain a spaceship and actually start doing extortion on a outer spacey level, which, by the way, is already a huge thing. Like, these aren't, like, completely rookie people. Like, they are someone who is capable of space combat. So it's not just some fucking city thug who thought, hey, I'm gonna be a space pilot. No, it's probably, like, ex-military or at least ex-security, someone who knows how to do something. But here's the thing. The best spots for a rogue naturally are the ones with the least amount of danger involved, right? So it only would make sense that the most well-armed rogues, the ones that have had the most time to band up to acquire resources, acquire gear, fit out their ships, would be the ones who operate in the safest areas. And so the further away you get from the core systems, where the security is very tight, the more dangerous and more well equipped the rogues are. And that kind of explains that. Essentially, New York is the breeding ground. It's basically just a meat grinder. You are, in fact, not docking.
I know.
Oh,
I
there
pushed
you are.
F3 though. Oh, there I go. I'm gonna crash again.
Dock,
I know, that does make a lot of
in
sense, to be
use.
honest.
Entering queue.
Although the question then is, like,
Though,
how did they learn to build ships? Because they have their own.
See, here's the thing. I really... it's the same thing as Junkers. These ships are basically just scrapped, overly modified, junked together ships that basically do only one purpose. Either they haul cargo, or they provide enough firepower for you to actually attack and extort and etc.
Dock.
So again...
If I kill you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So again, it is kind of like the Junkers. They're very similar in terms of how I think they would operate, but in the terms of rogues, I would actually say that the multitude of Liberty rogues would probably be actually planet-side. Because again, the implied logistics in order
Well, because
to
any
base...
criminal is a rogue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not only that, but the implied logistics for space, like,
Cancelled.
not colonization, but basically just space dwellings in general, requires that the people who get to do it are basically filtered out from the very lowest.
Dock.
Honestly, out of all the factions in-game, I could actually see the rogues out of all of them, besides the zoners, being the most likely to actually have a migrant fleet. It's just a fleet that moves around raiding shit, and the fleet's made up of whatever the hell they could get.
See, here's the thing. I really doubt that the rogues can survive on their own.
Well, yeah, because they don't know how to do anything. They have to steal to
No,
survive.
not it's not even stealing to survive. We are talking about Liberty, the most militaristically advanced place, maybe apart from Gallia. Haha, flame war! In the Sirius sector. Do you really think that attacking civilian targets to the degree to supply a multitude of space stations would be possible just
Doc.
on plain luck alone? No, I think that in the case of the Liberty Rogues, apart from institutions like the Lane Hackers, who specifically feed them information, there are groups that are actually in power to whom the Liberty Rogues are useful. And so every once in a while there's a civilian convoy who strays from the group, or there's maybe a window in the patrols.
I think that might be a bit much, to be honest. I think the issue is, again,
Not to a large degree, but just enough to keep them... I would say, on their own, they would be just barely self-sufficient. But that little prod from the outside, the anonymous one, they wouldn't even know. But that little prod from the outside that makes some of these coincidences very coincidental, right, would be enough.
I think you're actually, again, overlooking distance.
Cancel.
Like, Liberty might be the most heavily militarized, haha, but at the same time, to actually have its military everywhere at all times just is not possible.
No, of course not, but again, we're talking about civilian traffic, and the word civilian within the compounds of Discovery, and Freelancer in general. The term civilian doesn't really mean much. I mean, I've gone a lot about this in general, but we're talking about people in space flying ships with guns. They're not really civilian targets, are they?
I mean, there is also the possibility that, quite frankly, even with NPCs in the game, the volume of traffic that gets through, especially if we're supplying, like, Okay, planets are specialized to do things.
Yeah.
Dock.
So going from like a steel town to a place that uses it is the same as going from one planet to the other. The sheer amount of traffic means that if some goes missing, who gives a shit? It won't be noticed, and it's impossible to stop. I mean, again, if we
would
consider...
argue it would definitely be noticed.
Well, no, here's the thing. If we consider... Okay, if we actually consider that the population on the stations is most of the population of an unlawful faction, and then compare it to the amount of lawful population, a few transports going missing isn't going to bother anyone. It's just going to be, oh well, that sucks.
But that is completely...
Because it's so insignificant compared to the larger amount.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. That would imply that we are completely negating such thing as geopolitical circumstances in terms of diplomacy. Keeping keeping civilian traffic safe. Like, we're obviously not going to go into detail of how much these people would actually care for their civilian traffic, but they would probably care for their bottom line, wouldn't you think? And,
I mean,
you know,
yeah, but...
it's still humans. We're talking about human beings, so it's still actually a matter of pride.
Dock.
Right, but the cost to get, like, to potentially fix the problem would be more money, more human lives, have to pay for the extra ships to hunt down the people,
but
have to hire bounty hunters possibly.
Yeah, but exactly. We already have NPC patrols, we have, or rather NPC escorts for every single convoy, and we do have bounty hunters.
Yeah, I know.
So it is implied that it's the case, but yeah, I actually do agree, like, if I think about it.
Like, as far as I know, that's actually, like, the reason Liberty has so many unlawfuls. And that's because, like, they're allowed to exist because Liberty is just so bloated and bureaucratic it can't do anything about it. It's like a fat man struggling to swat the fly above his head.
It's not even that. I
hope you just put the mental image, by the way.
Yeah. But correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if this is a vanilla rumor or not, but there was a guy, a pilot in the either bar or the equipment room in the Battleship Missouri, who specifically states that if it was up to him, like, they know the location of Buffalo. It's implied that they know the location, that they know that there is a base there. If it was up to me, I would just take this battleship, just fly it straight into the Badlands. So, your point about the bureaucracy shield actually is very, very possible.
That's how I think about it. Rhineland is actually sort of similar, except it's a different case. It just has, like, it's just fucked. It is unstable, and that's why all those unlawfuls exist.
Yup.
Because they just can't do a fucking thing about it, because there are so many rebels.
It's okay, at least now there's one less. Now there's one less, right? Thanks, Steve.
Goodbye, farmers.
Bye. You were almost useful. I don't know. Then there's the topic of how rogues handle diplomacy itself, and it actually goes hand in hand with the idea that every single base has its own agenda. And so I would totally see that the rogues on Alcatraz, they would be leaning quite a fair bit towards being allied with outcasts, for example. Because it is one of the staging, well, not the staging points, but rather the, you know, chain points for the cardamine and the slave trade, yeah. While at the same time you would have, say... by the way, there was an LSF player who just jumped right behind us. While at the same time...
Oh, yeah, no, look at New York. There's a huge fight going on.
Yeah,
that's why we're coming up the floor. I want to see it.
Do you want to press B from afar? But yeah, well, say rogues on Dawson would...
I want to push this button from afar, actually.
Oh. Well, like, Dawson would deal a lot with the Uni-Eaters and, like, Rhineland in general, you know, Blodo Diamonds and all that. Ooh, hello.
That was the fight here?
No.
Oh.
It's okay, no one remembers this character's name. Are you going to
I wonder if
stop?
they're gonna hassle me for this pirate train. They didn't tell me to stop. Ow.
Boop.
What a rude man.
It's okay, you were flying towards the wrong ring anyway.
Dock.
They don't care.
Did they say a single word? I didn't see one.
Nope. I think they're fretting over what he said. I'm pretty sure they're discussing their tactics on how to best lose against the Hellfire Legion.
Probably.
Yep. I'm sorry if that sounded way too mean, but Jesus Christ, these people...
It's not mean if it's true.
It's not mean if it's true.
We're going to Newark, by the way. So hang a left.
Cancelled.
Ah! Look. What is this? Green on scanner.
White on scanner. It's a Zoomer
Zono?
Cargo.
with
Oh, what's
a lot of Xeno
Oh.
pilots. Someone's been
It's an A-wing
fixing.
gunboat.
Someone's been fixing their lab. Also, what do you mean Newark?
Newark.
For some
Dock.
Don't shoot the man.
Dock.
I don't know. The thing is, I don't think the game was ever intended to be used for a roleplay server, in all honesty. Like, there's just so
And
much
yet-
that hasn't filled out.
Yeah, and yet, the only reason why it's so good for a roleplay platform is because, okay, let's face it, Digital Anvil tried to do something very big for 2003 standards. They had the option of either fleshing out the universe very, very lots, but that would result in a very small universe, a very compact universe. Or they would give us a huge game world, but at the expense of how much they provide in terms of backstory. They still did an amazing job, but I think the fact that they didn't specifically fill out every single thing allows us to actually use it as a roleplay platform. And this is why I think any purpose-built projects for Freelancer, for the roleplay server, are going to be failed.
Go to.
Yes and no.
Activated.
It really depends. If it's a game mechanic
Cargo.
conversion, if we switch over to give us more option with mechanics,
Then
then it
yes.
should be fine.
If we
it
kept the
tries
lore
to like
completely-
expand on the lore,
Yeah, if it's a completely new...
space.
Because
I do wish
again-
they would have. I think they could have fleshed it out a little bit more and still been successful. Especially because there's some like info cards that actually contradict each other.
But I think that's fine. Contradictions are, like, not a new thing even, like, in books.
It's fine in rumors. It's not okay in info cards.
Let's, I would say we chalk it up to just mistakes made, you know, in a pre-micro-patch game industry.
Agreed. Hello, LM.
Dock.
Sup. Look at you.
Look at you putting your character name. What a sweaty tryhard.
I'm still waiting, like, I'm sadly waiting to see if someone would actually recognize the character name, but, don't think so.
Are we done talking this thing, by the way, or?
Yeah,